Hello again, everyone. This is Miss Doolittle. This time I want to talk you through power to a power property. In Accelerate, this is actually grouped in with the product of powers, but in a lot of textbooks it's taught separately, so I wanted to address this in a separate video. All right, so let's get going so I can show you where this comes from. So when you are raising a power to a power, and it looks like this right here, okay? So here's my power, and I'm raising that to another exponent. What we're going to do in this case is actually multiply those exponents together, okay? So this time I'm just going to show you the shortcut version, and then I'm going to go back and explain why that happens, okay? So here's what the rule says. I'm raising a power, x to the fourth, to another power or an exponent, so that means I multiply those two exponents together. So this becomes x to the 4 times 2 power. Now remember, last time we were adding, this time we're going to be multiplying these guys. So x is going to, 4 times 2 is 8, so x is going to be raised to the 8th power. Now let me show you why this is the case, okay? So x to the 4th raised to the 2nd power. Remember, what this means is take my base, which in this case is x to the 4th, and use that as a factor 2 times. So what this means is x to the 4th times x to the 4th. All right, and x to the 4th times x to the 4th, based on the rule that we just learned in the previous video, this would be x to the 4 plus 4 power, which is x to the 8th. Here's another way you can look at this. Again, if we start here, right, x to the 4th power squared means x to the 4th used as a factor 2 times. I could expand this out to be 1, 2, 3, 4 x's times another 1, 2, 3, 4 x's. Well, you guys can see that this just turns into a string of 8 x's, which we write so much more efficiently as x to the 8th power, okay? All right, so I do want to take a minute here. I didn't think about this when I was making the PowerPoint, but I do want to show you guys the difference between, like, if I had x to the 4th times x squared, okay, that's going to be x to the 4 plus 2 power, because it would be 4 x's and then another 2 x's, which would give me a string of 6 x's. However, when I take x to the 4th and I raise that to the 2nd power, that means something different. That's when we get into this stuff down here. So that means x to the 4th times another x to the 4th, which is actually going to be a string of 8 x's all multiplied together, okay? So these two things are very different. Here's the one from the last video where a base to a power times base to a power, that's what we called a product of powers. You add the exponents together, okay? And then when we have a base to a power, that's when we multiply those exponents. All right, let's go on down to the next one. So what I want you guys to see here, I've got a 2 being multiplied out in the front, and then I have a power, g to the 5th, that's being raised to the 3rd power, okay? So we got a couple different things going on here. My 2 that's out in the front, there really is no exponent applied to that whatsoever. So we're just going to kind of keep track of that 2, but we don't really have anything mathematical to do with it at this point, okay? But now we do have to simplify my power to a power, and based on the rule up above, that's just going to be g to the 5 times 3 power. And now you can see the 2 is just being multiplied by that, so this becomes 2g to the 15th power. And we're finished. That one is simplified. Okay, and the next one, obviously you can see the difference between the second problem that we just worked out and this third problem that we're getting ready to work out is that the 2 is actually enclosed in the parentheses with the g to the 5th power. Here's what that means. That means the exponent of 3 not only applies to my g to the 5th, but it also applies to the 2. All right? So that means we're going to handle this just a little bit different. Okay, we're going to write it out the way that I just mentioned it. So we're going to say that 2 is raised to the 3rd power, and g to the 5th is also raised to the 3rd power. Well, 2 to the 3rd power is just 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. And here we have the same thing that we had up above. G to the 5th raised to the 3rd is g to the 5 times 3. All of that together is 8g to the 15th power, and that exponent of 15 is applying just to the g. Okay? All right. Let's try a few practice problems. I'm going to ask you guys to pause the video and work out number 3, and we'll check when you get back. Okay, so let's see what you did. Remember, this exponent is going to apply to the 3 as well as the x to the 4th. So this is 3 to the 4th times x to the 4 times 4. 3 to the 4th power, that would be the same thing as 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, which is 9 times 9, which is 81. X to the 16th. Okay? Take a minute, work out number 4, and we'll check when you get back. Okay, let's see what you got. So remember, because this 6b squared is all enclosed in the parentheses, that means that exponent of 2 is going to apply to the 6 as well as to the b squared. So this is 6 squared times b squared squared. Okay? All right, so that is 6 times 6 is 36 times b to the 2 times 2, which is 36b to the 4th power. All right, take a minute and work out number 7. Press pause. We'll check when you get back. Okay, hopefully you had a chance to get that done. This time we have 3 things inside the parentheses that this exponent of 3 is going to apply to. All 3 of those guys, okay? So what this becomes is 2 to the 3rd power times, I'm going to write it a little more shorthand like I did in number 3. My x to the 4th is raised to the 3rd power, which means I multiply those exponents together. And my y to the 4th is also raised to the 3rd power, which means I multiply those exponents together. 2 to the 3rd, 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. X to the 4 times 3 is x to the 12th, and y to the 4 times 3 is y to the 12th. All right, try number 8. Press pause and we'll check when you get back. Okay, let's see how you did on this one. Again, this exponent of 3 is going to apply to 3 different factors inside that set of parentheses. So this is going to be 5 to the 3rd power. The m is raised to the 3rd power. Remember, that was actually an m to the phantom 1 exponent, right? Sorry, my 1 went away. It's raised to the 1. So this is going to be a 1 times 3. Now the n was raised to the 3rd power and then to the 3rd power again, so that becomes 3 times 3. So 5 to the 3rd power, remember that is not 5 times 3, so it is not 15. It is 5 times 5 times 5, which is actually 125. M to the 1 times 3 is m to the 3rd. And n to the 3 times 3 is n to the 9th. Okay, I'm going to have you guys try number 13, and I'm going to give you a little hint first. If you can simplify what's in the parentheses, remember order of operations, PEMDAS, you simplify what's in the parentheses first. So if you can do that, simplify what's in the parentheses first, then apply that exponent. So go ahead and press pause, and we'll check when you get back. Okay. All right, so to simplify what is in the parentheses, we have to do what we did in a prior video. So we're going to take our numbers and just multiply them like we always would have. So this is going to be 3 times 2 is 6. And then my x squared times another x squared. Remember, I have base to a power times a base to a power. My bases are the same, so that means I add my exponents together. 2 plus 2 is 4. Now all of this is raised to the second power, so now I'm ready to address that extra exponent that's hanging around outside the parentheses. So that exponent is going to apply to the 6 as well as my x to the 4th. Okay, so this becomes 6 squared times x to the 4 times 2, because that's being squared. 6 squared, of course, is 36. Remember, not 12. It doesn't mean 6 times 2. It means 6 times 6. We use 6 as a factor 2 times. And x to the 4 times 2 is x to the 8th power. All right, same type of thing applies on number 14. Go ahead and press pause, and we'll check when you get back. Okay, so we want to simplify what's inside the parentheses. Remember, that is a p to the first power, even though that 1 wasn't showing up. 2 times 2 is 4. P to the third times p to the first. My bases are the same, and they're being multiplied together, so that means I'm going to add my exponents, right? So that's p to the 4th power. Now that whole entire thing is being squared, okay? So that now my squared is going to apply to my 4, and it's going to apply to my variable factor. So this is going to be 4 squared times p to the 4 times 2, because that p to the 4th is squared, so I multiply those guys together. 4 squared is 16, and p to the 4 times 2 is p to the 8th. All right, guys, I have yet to get one of these under 10 minutes, but I'm trying, I promise. Okay, so if you have any questions, please contact me. Thank you so much for watching.